unified modeling language. That's what it is. And it is a very crucial for a business analyst to support that role, to support the analyst position with the help of this. And that is what we are going to understand why it is important, what are the different type of structures we can have as part of UML. And then later on, which is the another session, we are going to talk about more in terms of how to use the tool, what are the different type of symbols available, and then we'll do some practical also, which will help you understand different type of diagrams, different type of languages, and then followed by some assignments. Now, starting up with the introduction. This is a small introductory section which is just going to give you more kind of a history and the introduction of UML, what it is. So the overall objective of this session is to teach you and make you understand how to convert the requirements which you have received from the different stakeholders into a graphical notation. And this tool, which is your UML, this language, helps you do that. How to use the different type of diagrams, how to create different type of diagrams depending upon the need of the requirement, need of the stakeholders. So when we talk about the need, every time you are working on a project, depending upon what exactly you are trying to explain with the help of a graphical notation, that is the deriving factor before you make up your mind, that make up the decision that this is the kind of a diagram you are going to use. So being said that, towards the end of the session, not of this session, towards the end of the complete UML, when we will be done by the assignment, the overall objective is to enable the candidate to have the working experience, to enable you to provide the working experience stating if you would have worked as a business analyst, what kind of a skill set you would have used, how you would have used the UML diagram, depending upon the requirements which you have. Now, moving on, as part of this session, we are going to talk about why UML, what exactly is UML, then what is the history of UML, when did it start, what are the different type of diagrams which are the most popular UML diagrams, and some of the best recommendations for the reference point of view. We will also talk about that some software which is required, which you can easily have the trial versions available, just to give you more kind of a hands-on experience on those softwares, so that you know what exactly the different notations are and how to use them. Now, introduction. Now, from the introduction perspective, as it says, the UML stands for the Unified Modeling Language, which is the international industry standard graphical notation for describing software analysis and design. When a standardized notation is used, there is little room for misinterpretation and ambiguity. Therefore, standardization provides for efficient communication, which is, you can say, a picture is worth 1,000 words, and leads to fewer errors caused by misunderstanding. So the overall point over here we are trying to make is that when you are using some standard, there is very less room, there is a very minimal room you have for the misinterpretation, and that is the key in the requirement. So when you are trying to explain the orange, the end user must understand that you are trying to diagram, you are trying to notate that this is the orange. It shouldn't come out to be that, okay, the user gave you the requirement about the orange, but the final product came out to be an apple. No, that's not good. So to avoid those type of misinterpretation, these languages are in use, and that is why we say it's a unified modeling language which helps us understand the same requirement with the help of a graphical notation. So whether you are using the UML, let's say you are working on an outsourcing project where your team is sitting remote somewhere, and maybe it's altogether different country. So just think about it. The person, the resources who are going to work on that project, take over the requirement and start working on it, they are not the ones who are exactly interacting with the client. So what you have written, the way you have phrased, every person have their own way of writing. Two people cannot write in the same way. So what happens? Then maybe what you have written, the team who is going to develop that, maybe the delivery team may have a different understanding. To avoid that, you try to create some kind of a UML diagram to making use of the UML notations, so that whatever you're trying to narrate with the help of your requirement, exactly that's what you are explaining with the help of your graphical notation. So that creates a very clear understanding for the entire team, and the entire team is on the same page, so that there is no ambiguity, there are no misunderstanding, there are no miscommunication, and that is the overall success what you look for the requirement perspective. Now let's look at the history side of it. As we see, it was created and developed by Gary Butch, Edward Jacobson, and James Rumbaugh at Rational Software during 1994 and 1995. So even though it is old, but it's not that old, we can consider it. So it says from 1994 to 1995 with further development led by them through 1996. So 1996, or I would say from 1994 it started into the air, and then finally you get more detailed, more refined version of the UML somewhere around 1996. And since then we have been modifying it, we have been making improvements to this, because the aggressively you use some product, you use the concept, that's how you try to identify all the flaws as part of it and then try to make some improvement on this. So you can read more about the history. This is just kind of an FYI for you, for your information, nothing more than that from the Wikipedia. Now these are some of the types of diagram which we have. So as we see, we have a very thin line between the type of diagram. So we have two types of sections. Here is our UML, and then here is our structural diagram and the behavioral diagram. Now when we talk about the structural diagram, what we are considering is there are some type of diagrams which more emphasize on the structure of the requirement, that how the structure of the data should work. In other words, the behavioral requirement talks more from the behavior of the project. So when we talk about the behavioral requirements, I'll give you the example for all, and then when we get to the next session where we'll have more hands-on and talk about the different diagrams, you will see why it is a structural diagram and why it is a behavioral diagram. Now, composite diagram, package diagram, development diagram, profile, class, all these things are the different way of representing the structure of it. So we'll just take one or two examples over here. So when we are talking about a class diagram, what exactly it is? The class diagram is nothing but it showcases that how your class is related with each other. What is the relation? What different type of classes you have in place? What are the attributes of the class? What kind of a relation you can establish between the two classes, and you can showcase that. When we talk about the class diagram, always remember this is little on the technical side of it. It goes little detailed enough as compared to the requirement. So class diagram you will see more from the technical side of it rather than the requirement side. Then let's talk about the deployment. Deployment structure is what? Deployment diagram. You are trying to showcase how the phase-wise deployment process will work. That is what your deployment diagram is. Package diagram, composite diagram. When you package the things together, when you put the different kind of workflows together, that gives you the composite where you have some compositions. So these are the different classifications more from the structural side. So far what we have taught is structure, how you will deploy, how your class look and feel would be. It's all about structure. How those structures will work comes as part of your behavioral diagram. So as we see state diagram, use case diagram, activity diagram, interaction diagram, or the sequence diagram. These are the further extension of your structure diagram, because structure is just showing that, okay, this is what the blueprint of, for example, this is the blueprint of your house. So what you are showing, you are just showing the structure of it. In other words, when I ask you, and if someone is asking you that, okay, define each of the structure and break it down, that how the structure gets down to the activities, how do you break down the entire process? So I will take a starting point and I'll, let's say, think about it. Very small example. If I give you a simple notation and say, write down, or just if I ask someone, just okay, write down 5 lines about any topic which you like the most. What will be the activity, what sequence you are going to follow over there? So try to understand the behavior of it. The behavior is that, okay, you need a pen, so you will pick up a pen, you will pick up a paper, and then you will think about it, then you will start making a title of it, and then you start writing about the topic. That is the ideal structure, ideal way of activity or the sequence you are going to follow. So now we are talking about the detailed breakdown of the structure. So the structure is like, okay, that let's say the essay is your just a defined structure that you have to have a 5 line, and you are going to think of a topic. That is, I define the structure of an essay. Whereas when we talk about a behavior, behavioral is breaks down into the further details of each and every distinct process which is going to complete that structure. That is what your behavioral is. How each of the activity is going to behave. That is your behavioral is. State diagram. State diagram is if I ask you that, okay, give me the states, different states. If a customer is trying to withdraw perform the withdrawal activity from the ATM, what would be the state diagram? The state is a physical state. So the state would be something like that customer walking to the ATM or driving through the ATM. That is the state. That is an activity. But the final state is that customer reached the ATM. That is your state. Whereas driving and walking to the ATM is an activity. Try to distinguish these two things side by side. Then what is the next level? The next is try to distinguish between the sequence and the state, because most of the time that's where people do make mistakes. Now the next sequence would be that inserting the card. That is the next sequence. That is the next activity. Whereas the state is card accepted. That is your state. Then followed by that, the activity is that enter password, entering the customer entering the password. That is an activity. That is the sequence. Whereas the state is password accepted. So this is how you will define the state versus activity, sequence, how the interaction is happening between the ATM and the customer. So this is all about your behavioral diagram, and this is where your behavioral diagram comes into the picture, and these classifications are there. So this is the type of diagrams which you can think about it. Now, these are some of the references which you can look through it and we can talk about it. But this is just an introduction side of it, and there is nothing more to it. So if you have any question, you can raise your questions as part of this. Any questions so far on the introduction side of it? Because the next session is going to be a little aggressive, because we are going to talk about a lot of diagrams and do some hands-on experience too. So this is good. That's great. Thank you.